Do we have sound? While we have sound, let's do a few boldings just to ground ourselves a little bit and maybe pay attention to some sensory input. Just gonna take a few breaths. By the way, those sounds that you're hearing are through a closed window. So I'm thinking about all the noise that we have in our lives, both literal and figurative, and how inescapable it can be. Okay. I'm not going to cook much today. I'm just going to heat things up in the microwave, eat some fruit. I bought some baby collards again from the farmer's market. And I'm just going to wrap some leftovers up in those leaves and get my greens in and clear out the fridge with minimal effort. I've been thinking a lot this week and maybe a little bit of last week too in terms of processing the emotions of guilt of having to slow down because of my body's burnout and my brain burnout and potentially long COVID, whatever the fuck this is. And also the added layer of guilt of like, yesterday I chose to meet up with Aaron and Nez and Dice K and Alex, four friends in Flushing, to just see them and eat some stuff and give myself that social connection so that I don't just kind of wither away. Okay. If you're going to bed, have a great night. And so, yeah, all of those things are happening in my brain as I'm processing this kind of like stalemate reckoning of sorts of how to mobilize and what effect we can have, what effects we aren't seeing, how long this has been going on for. So I'm just going to be taking the time to eat some stuff on a stream. This is like, I guess, a slow, mildly depressing mukbang, if you want to call it that, with a lot of interesting sounds happening tonight. And they don't bother me as much anymore, and I don't know if it's because I'm used to feeling burnt out now, or anyway, I bought this grapefruit for $1 and I was really excited because it looked really good. There's a pink spot, there's some nice rich buttery yellow tones with a little bit of green blush and a little bit of russeting webbing. And then as I was putting it in my bag, I was like, oh, this part feels very soft. So I don't know what this grapefruit is going to be like, but we're going to cut it open and see, and we're going to eat whatever we can of it. I have been missing fruit all week because I missed out on farmers market apples last week because I went too late because I was so tired that I decided to slink back into bed after seeing grandma, and by the time I got to the farmers market everybody had cleaned up all the apple bags. So I bought 2 bags for myself this week, and we're gonna fill up on fruit first. And that's it. We can talk. We can try to be mindful. And failure is a part of the process. I don't know if anybody else has been checking in with themselves about how they've been feeling this week. I'm not quite sure how to describe what I'm feeling yet. It feels like a slight failure. It feels like egg on my face of sorts. But it also feels like I'm centering my own importance too much, right? Which I think is unavoidable for someone with a big ego like me. But we're working on it. Been talking to friends with different perspectives on political engagement and just being receptive, and I don't know, I have the privilege and resources of being patient with the learning, I guess, but even if I'm not patient, I don't really know. I don't really know what the alternative is. Egg on my face just is a expression of embarrassment. Like, I don't know what it comes from. Does it mean that you were trying to juggle eggs, aka doing something really dumb, and one of them just fell flat on your face? I'm not really sure. I don't have avocado, unfortunately, but I do have grapefruit. And the soft part doesn't seem too bad, so we're just gonna eat it, and if I end up shitting my pants later, then I end up shitting my pants later. That's for future me to deal with. I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, because I eat so many questionable things, and you know, maybe in the long term it's bad for you. And I just feel like at this point, I'm either going to have my kidney disease come back, or I'm actually going to die of some sort of cancer, probably. Or go the way of my mom with a heart condition. And I swear I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm just thinking through, like, what the probabilities are of how I'm going to die. And yeah, Lauren, that sounds fucking horrible. Working 2 jobs, feeling exhausted all the time, and still not pulling in enough money to meet your basic needs. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing in 2024 together. I think that's the theme. So on the one hand, we're learning all the history in order to kind of formulate a vision of maybe what a different future can look like. And on the other hand, we're also learning how to be together after a whole lifetime of not being together and a whole lifetime of competing against each other. And I feel like there have been people who have been doing this from a lot of their lives, but like, I feel like I'm in the cohort of people who are just getting onboarded, and it feels a lot. We're not cooking anything today, Kirsten. We're just eating today. Fruits and leftovers, wrapped in collard greens. First thing up, we're eating grapefruit. It's not as sour or bitter or sweet as I anticipated it being. It doesn't feel super acidic on my teeth yet, although sometimes a day after eating the grapefruit, my teeth can feel like they're in extreme pain. Um, and I guess that's also for future me to deal with. Um, Trying to eat mindfully is probably not what I'm doing now, but I'm trying to pay attention to the colors, the shapes, the sounds of the grapefruit, inspecting it, looking at the patterns of the juice sacs before I pop it into my mouth. Oh yeah, I put 3 different colors on my nails yesterday. We were in Flushing and we went into a Korean beauty store and they had all these samples of nail polish colors. So of course, I can't resist. Ever since I was in the 4th grade, I just had to try on all of the testers, and I'm blessed with monolids, so you can't see my eye makeup until I'm like blinking fully. This is pre-pandemic eyeliners, so they're really cakey and not as smooth gliding anymore, and they smudge all over the place. But I just felt like doing something. I don't know, man. This feels very intimate to be speaking to you while you're showering. I feel like this is like a 14th date thing that we're doing right now. By the way, I don't know how to use makeup, so I don't even know what setting spray is. And girl, I'm not going to spend money on setting spray. I buy makeup like once every 2 years. All of my shit is expired. In the Shower with Siobhan is a delightful podcast idea and title. Imagine recording a 15 to 18 minute podcast episode while you're showering. I'm gonna steal that idea. There's a little, you can't see it on my shitty camera probably, but there's a little bit of a sunset gradient happening here. A very light, beigey, clear, milky white tint on top, saturating itself down into that typical salmony, rosy, dusk pink color on the bottom. Shower sermons, we're in. You need to let us know where to listen to your podcast. $144p. Why? Is that as high a resolution as I can show it for you right now? I don't even like grapefruit, but you make it sound appealing. I went through a very hateful phase with grapefruit where I was like, why would anybody eat grapefruit when it's this bitter and you could just have sweet oranges? But it is beautiful. It comes off beautifully in these segments. I never use a spoon to scoop. I always peel off the membrane so that I could eat chunks of it. And this is the same way that I eat pomelo as well. Sorry for the white balance. But yeah, I enjoy grapefruit now. I like all the different layers and personas of flavor that it carries within itself. There's a certain kind of like jasmine tea flavor that comes through in grapefruit that I don't find in many other citrus fruits. It has a kumquat quality where there is a stronger kind of essential oil flavor to it. Yeah, so if you deskin the membrane, you're just getting the juice sacs. And it's much less bitter, you're right. I peel off one side of the membrane and then I separate it from the top. This is a very like intentional food to eat for me because I need both hands to eat it. I can't just like shovel it in with a spoon. Being in Flushing yesterday with friends, eating food, walking around, doing grocery shopping, it felt undeservedly normal. I feel like maybe a lot of you can identify with experiencing that emotion these days. Feels wrong to do things. Salt, you say, on grapefruit. Interesting. All right, let's try it. Salt on grapefruit. Let's try it. You know, I had a friend say to me, like, basically the messaging was, chill, bro, you're not that important. And, like, I both recognize it and don't understand how to apply that feeling. Was there salt in that? Not sure. Okay. A little bit of salt. Look at that glisten. Okay. Has a little bit of that kind of like tequila shot vibe, where you're licking your hand with salt before you down it. No, I mean, this friend is like very direct, you know? I think he means well. I also think that for people who have been more politically active for longer, they're kind of just like sick and tired of seeing this lukewarm sort of collective action that never amounts to much, it seems. So I get it. I remember being really angry when I was in the union because I felt like so many people weren't going hard enough for the union. And that if they had just gone a little bit harder, we would have gotten the contract much faster with better terms and everything. Just to clarify, sorry, I probably did it without context. My friend told me that I'm not that important in terms of feeling hopelessness, in terms of affecting political change. And he's right? All of this change has to come from collective action. It's not ever just on a savior to lead us into salvation. That's kind of how you have fascist states rise up, you know? A leader with charisma, or that's how you have great leaders who then get deaded because they're seen as someone with too much power to move the people. So it is always more sustainable to move in collective action. How to get people on board, I think, is where we have been stuck for a very long time. I think people aren't just afraid, I think they don't see the necessity of having to do much more because they're not affected by it yet. It's the same thing with climate change, too. We all feel kind of hopeless, and we all recognize that it's like corporations who are doing the most evil and the most negative impact. And so we kind of just all resign to inevitable mudslides and avalanches. What is the story of the kid on the beach tossing starfish back? Do I know that story? Last segment. Your dad sounds awesome, Godzilla Pie. Right. I think it is part of me. I think a lot of my life has been very guilt-induced and motivated. And I'm realizing now that it's a really self-absorbed, egocentric kind of feature. Like, it has its limits of usefulness in a lot of ways. And other than that initial stage of usefulness, it kind of degrades into paralysis. And so I'm learning how to mitigate that. Okay, we've eaten one grapefruit. There's a lot of guilt. All different sorts of guilt. And they're all kind of like medication who interact with each other to compound the effect of paralysis on me. There's the guilt of not doing enough. There's the guilt of not being enough. There's the guilt of not wanting enough in a lot of ways, you know. Okay, so the starfish story. A lot of starfish washed upon a storm, and a kid on the beach the next day was tossing them back. An adult said, "You'll never be able to save them all." The kid tosses another back and said, "It matters too." Leonora says, "I think the problem with getting people to change is they don't like the unknown. If they are presented with an alternative with specifics, not the vague change, more would embrace change." And here, I think, is the crux of it, right? This is also what I was talking about with my friend, is like, I was asking him, what are the alternatives that we can present to people who have now realized that this isn't the way that we want to live our lives, but we also can't visualize anything beyond all that we know so far and have witnessed and lived our entire lives. And, you know, I think definitely we need just like mass education to start, right? Because if you don't know what's been done before, what's succeeded and what's failed, and what's always been part of the resistance movements, then you probably will feel like there is no hope, because the current status quo is all that you've witnessed and all that you've experienced and all that you've seen and all that you can believe in. But a lot of us don't have that time, so that's roadblock number one. Number two, I think, is like a successful revolution has to be full time, because I've realized that if you don't do it full time, that means that you're still using your time and your labor and your energy and your resources to play into the current system that you're actually trying to divert and divest from. So it's kind of like, how can you feed two plants at once when clearly you want to starve out one of them because it's not a good plant for you to nurture anymore? And I think that's a major roadblock, is that we're kind of all buying into the current framework and can't find our way out of it because it holds us hostage. Are you saying I'm too young to have a midlife crisis? Or are you talking to someone else in the chat? Fresh from the Coven says, I was listening to a video, I'll send it to you, about the fact that we have centered ourselves so much, we have lost the ability to build real life community. Yeah. Because we value our own personal well-being and success so much because that's what we've been taught to do, right? That's actually a system that's been branded as self-care and good, that we now see has rendered us kind of disabled when it comes to organizing ourselves as a collective body to actually affect power and leverage threat against ruling forces that we don't really agree with and want to divest from. But I don't think a lot of us are at that threshold yet, right? Of wanting to actually abandon all of the status quo. I think a lot of us realize that the status quo is not working for us in some way, and for some that's more than others, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really have optimism for affecting change until things get way worse across the board. So until then, we're just building up a threshold of suffering in a lot of ways. I think I'm still in the process of figuring out what it means to acknowledge that and start to incorporate small practices, maybe personal practices, maybe practices that won't affect change, really, on a greater systemic level at all. But I think that might help me start to shift my mindset a little bit. I've never joined a Discord. I don't even know what that entails. Alright, I have leftover, like, pad thai-ish things, and I have leftover New Year's beans. This has been defrosted. It's not been sitting in the fridge the entire time, don't worry, but let's eat some of this. I think eating that much grapefruit gave me a stomachache. So, note bene. Too much grapefruit, maybe stomachache. And now beans, some more stomachache. Oh guys, I'm not that much of a boomer, am I? I think I can set up my own Discord, right? I hope. Jesus Christ, maybe not. Is gochujang a reasonable sub for sriracha and your generous sauce chickpeas? I mean, it won't really... Generous sauce is kind of like a made-up dish anyway. Girl, you do whatever you want. Whatever red chili spicy thing you want to add in there, you add. Gochujang is going to be a little bit sweeter than sriracha. I'm going to fish my collard greens out of the water that they've been sitting in for the entire day. I've turned into my mom for sure. I just let veggies sit in water forever. That's what she used to do to clean them. No good eBay finds, although I did buy myself 2 sets of yoga blocks on eBay. Because I didn't feel like buying brand new ones from Amazon. But, yeah, I can't really go to the gym anymore. I can't really exercise like I used to anymore. I can't even seem to walk beyond an hour without feeling absolutely exhausted anymore. So I've been trying to motivate myself to get more soft, gentle movements in at home. So I'm gonna try to do more stretching and just holding some static poses. It's been pretty, I mean, I'm so burnt out of everything, so I won't say it's been too triggering, but it's been pretty sad. I think exercising almost daily was such a part of my routine that kept me mentally stable, and to not be able to do that, especially with my history of disordered eating and body image issues, has been like definitely a huge disappointment and letdown. But I'm trying not to have it completely destroy me, because that has happened so many times before and I don't care to repeat it anymore. I'm so sick and tired of my own cycles that I just can't do that anymore. So yeah, that's the last thing that I've purchased off of eBay is some yoga blocks. One of them said like new, other, which meant usually they're just not in their original packaging and without tags. But it turned out the seller had actually probably used the blocks because they came like pretty indented and wrinkled and nicked, but whatever, whatever. I think if you had caught me like 7 or 8 years back, I would have been like writing to them angrily and be like, yo, refund me. But now I'm just like, whatever. There are way worse things in life. Anyway, baby collard, super delicious, super tender. I like to eat it raw. I don't know if it's gonna wreak havoc on my digestive system, but we're gonna wrap some beans in there and eat it. The flavor is somewhat sweet, like raw broccoli. It's somewhat astringent, like spinach. It's a little bit creamy, like scrambled eggs. And it almost tastes like it's been lightly seasoned already with salt. So this has been one of my favorite things to buy from the farmer's market. It's just baby collard green leaves. They taste great in soup. raw, stir fried, basically anything you want to eat it with. And it's a very enjoyable experience, I think, to have a little leaf burrito. Some farmers market in New York City are year-round. The one near me is year-round. Every week, every Sunday. How much of my stomach ache is from the grapefruit and how much is from me talking about all the sad shit? I don't know, actually. I think I mentioned this on a previous live that this is one of the last things that I've been working on with my therapist, is realizing that a lot of my stomach aches are actually kind of like psychosomatically triggered, and trying to figure out a way to alleviate that manifestation of stress when it happens. And it's helped somewhat to just even talk to myself, either internally or vocally, of like, okay, I sense that you're having a stomach ache. It might be because of food, but it might also be because of stress and anxiety. And I just put my hand, sometimes one, sometimes both, and I kind of just like rested on there for half a minute or a minute, depending on what feels good. Sometimes I can get calm enough to feel the little heartbeat pulsing my blood through that area. And I just practice some breaths. And sometimes I think and sometimes I don't. And if I do think, I just allow myself to slowly kind of brush away the dust on the photo. This is a metaphor. On the photo of what might be causing the stress and the anxiety. And saying to myself, there might not be anything you can do to solve the problem that's causing you stress and anxiety, but I recognize that your body is reacting to it. And let's just sit here until you can chill. I love She Wolf Bakery. Their polenta loaf is amazing. You think I can administer acupuncture to myself? That's pretty crazy. I'm definitely gonna jab something that I'm not supposed to jab. You're saying this to a person who can't bike and can't drive. What up, Philly? How's the city of brotherly love? Ooh, that last collared stem was very mustardy. It tasted pungent, punchy. Oh, and there's grit still on this leaf. What up, Germany? I mean, acupuncture might work, but I don't know about self-administering it, you know? Uh-oh, you lost your taste buds, huh? Is it COVID? Yeah. I've been considering whether or not the cold that I got in December was COVID. I mean, at this point, it's kind of irrelevant. But not really if we're trying to figure out, you know, the trajectory of long COVID. I think, all things considered, it seems like long COVID is definitely a thing for me. But I called up the New York City Health and Hospitals hotline that provides long-term COVID-19 care. And it's a sliding scale for your income, although I don't really know what the sliding scale is. Probably still not affordable enough, but the lady on the phone line told me that the next appointment for my area was in April. What up, Naz? So yeah, there's a 3-month wait for COVID-19 long-term care in New York City right now. And that's probably for people who are like lower income. How's your Sunday, Naz? Oh man, I should show you guys the shirt that Naz got me. We saw this meme on Instagram from the movie Pearl, and we jokingly sent it to Nez's boyfriend Mark, and we were like, yo, let's make a shirt. And we made it. For those of you who've seen this movie, you might get it more. Thank you, Nez. Thank you, Mark. Going back to read your comments. We have no long-term COVID care available. Cool. I mean, at this point, I don't even know if New York City's long-term COVID care is functional. Yeah, Amy, we were actually saying that once we stained the white t-shirt enough, we should tie-dye it. It's from the movie Pearl. Or X, actually. Which one is it? I think it's from the movie Pearl, because I watched X and that line wasn't in it. Maybe I should watch Pearl tonight. Sorry you joined on a fairly boring live, Naz. We're not cooking today. We're just chilling. Chilling and eating leftovers and dropping shit on the floor. Here we have beans and greens. Beans and greens! Beans in greens. That's a restaurant concept. Yeah, that's how they're tracking COVID all across the US, I think, is wastewater. And yeah, there seems to be a big spike just nationwide. From holidays. Makes sense. If I ever did a pop-up, like a permanent pop-up, or a restaurant, which I won't, I would definitely make a t-shirt, which I also won't. Because I believe I have told you all that if you ever see me sell merch, that is no longer the real me. Let's heat up some of our leftover pad thai and finish this thing off. Not sure if it's safe to put all my glass jars straight in the microwave like that. Probably one day it won't be safe. There are some leftovers that smell better than the fresh version, and I feel like pad thai and all related rice noodle stir fry dishes belong in that family of smells better as leftovers. Fat rice noodles, huge chunks of garlic. I am not seeing anyone tomorrow in real life, so... Oh, actually, that's not true. I totally am. But it's okay. We'll live. Does anybody have any cool plans for this upcoming week? Something to rejuvenate our spirits, perhaps? Hope in the time of widespread hopelessness? Your first tattoo. Oops. Jasmine bath beads? What goes into bath beads? Ooh, there's a nice chunk of chicken in here. Nice, nice. Another piece of huge garlic. Some eggs, some rice noodles, some onions, some carrot. Delicious. This bite has it all. People ask me about cats all the time. It's not a no. Yep, they are collard greens. Baby ones. Baby collard greens. And sandwiching leftovers into leaves of collard greens. Currently fat ass rice noodles. Supposed to steam them? How am I supposed to know what you're supposed to do? Yeah, probably. Heat and oil opens up the bioavailability of some nutrients in food. It depends. For example, carrots, high in vitamin A, fat-soluble vitamin, better when bloomed in oil. But, you know, your mileage may vary. I don't really know food science like that, so you trust whatever you read if you want to trust it. I'm definitely not the authority of health. That's for sure. I just eat. Fact check by Doc Marmalade. See? I don't know my shit at all. Thank you. Don't trust me, guys. Never trust me. What is a good veggie for eczema? I'm not sure. Is it celery? I think I read a book once that told me that you should try out a low FODMAP diet, elimination diet, to figure out what your eczema food triggers are. I don't think everyone's eczema is triggered by the same thing. So, I can't wait to smoke tonight. And actually, YouTube and Instagram are getting scarily accurate in terms of recommending content to me now. So on Instagram, I have Palestine posts every once in a while, like maybe less than 4% of the time, but still pretty surprising given how much they've suppressed that kind of content on their platform. I would say 30% of it is like personality disorders, ADHD, autism, or relationship advice posts. I would say another 30 to 40% is probably like cute animal posts. Another 20% is like literature memes or like philosophically depressing shit. So it's pretty accurate. Oh, and there's a lot of food content too, like baked goods or, you know, hype places or pizzas or whatever. And on the YouTube side, I'm getting a lot of like body flexibility and yoga shorts. A lot of identity politics long form videos. Still some pop psychology and attachment theory videos being recommended to me. And then just some of the random comedy videos that everybody gets in their carousel. So one of the shorts that got served to me on YouTube today was like, which one's worse for your health? Alcohol or marijuana? And obviously the answer is alcohol. But the video also goes on to say that like marijuana apparently ages you more than alcohol does, which I honestly don't believe, because alcohol completely destroys your liver. And I feel like that's pretty crucial to usefulness. But I don't know. I guess depending on how you intake your marijuana, it also went on to say that it affects your lungs, and especially with respiratory diseases going around, it could impact and compound. But I'm at the point where I went off of weed recently for over 3 weeks, I would say. And I had weed maybe twice in those 3.5 weeks because I just ran out of weed. And I only smoked when I was like with a friend, but I would say that continuing smoking this week has helped me tremendously in terms of not feeling that deep sense of despair. So I think in the way that a lot of people turn to different kinds of pharmaceutical pills, I feel like weed has a alleviation effect on me in terms of mental health, and maybe it's an addiction now, or maybe I truly just need it. And from my point of view, I feel like weed is probably infinitely more preferable to me than taking pharmaceutical pills. One, because as a child I just had to take so many meds and go to so many doctors for my autoimmune diseases and all of that. And two, I've heard from friends that, you know, it's like a lot of like hit and miss. You have to go on 2 or 3 months of trying out one drug to see if it works for you, and if it doesn't, then you have to like try another one. You have to lower and up your dosage. And I just feel like with weed it is so much easier to kind of control it yourself, and I don't think I've ever spiraled out of control with weed. I normally just smoke at the end of the night, because I can't actually be productive like some people can while I'm high, so I don't do it during the daytime. But yeah. There's been a recent study showing weed actually helping with COVID-19 severity. Interesting. Smoking is bad for you. Eating it would be better. At least smoking it without nicotine. Yeah, I don't smoke nicotine. Nicotine is the one that physically addicts you, I think. Way more than weed does. And yeah, I know smoking is still bad for your lungs. At this point, I'll take the trade-off. You know? Because, I mean, my mental health has such a stronghold on me that it just bleeds into every moment of my waking hours. So if trading off my lung health in return for functional existence it's, I feel like, sure, let's do it, you know? I feel like life is just a series of trade-offs at a certain point. Shall we see what else I can eat? I made this mung bean paste because I had to use up the mung beans. I feel like the beans were spoiling themselves, and I put in some coffee grounds. And Grandma seems to like it, but I think she's lying to me because she didn't actually finish her piece yesterday. And then she told me today, bring her 2 more pieces, and I'm like, girl, you didn't even finish your 1 piece. Don't even start with me. Grandma makes me bring her more than she can eat, and then she doesn't finish it, and then she throws a fit when I throw it out after 24 hours of room temp keeping, and then says that I'm too mean and wasteful. I feel like at this point, Grandma's just trying to find ways to, like, blame me for things. I actually think I prefer this warm. Let's cut a piece of it and warm it up. I don't want to eat weed. I've actually never had a good high when I've eaten weed before. It makes me feel physically ill, actually. So I don't think everybody is built the same way, and I think I'm just gonna do what works for me for now, because it works for me for now. But thank you for your advice. Noted. That was mung bean paste. It's neither fudge nor halva, but I guess it's kind of both. There is butter in it. There's a lot of milk cooked down into the beans. There's a lot of sugar as well. I put in some cinnamon. I put in some ginger. I put in some coffee. I was very surprised that Grandma didn't immediately hate it, but maybe she actually does. I don't know. I'll keep you updated. I'm going over tomorrow to see if she finished the 3 pieces that I brought her today. She requested 4 for tomorrow. We're not going to give her 4. My uncle was like, give her 2 tomorrow. I think he's right. Smells vaguely sweet. Smells vaguely like coffee chai, actually. No. If I gave Grandma cannabis, I can't tell her that it's cannabis because she basically told me that I was a degenerate for smoking. So, you know, there we have it. Bronchial cough and phlegm. My cold never developed into a cough. I did have phlegm, but it was mostly in my, like, post-nasal drip kind of order. It didn't come from the throat, but I don't really know how phlegm works. I have been hearing a lot of really deep coughs on the subway. I have been wearing my N95 mask. At this point, I'm just like, I can be a hermit forever if I don't want to get COVID again, but let's just be honest, if I'm going to be operating in life, buying my own shit and seeing friends every once in a while, I'm probably going to catch COVID again. And at this point, I'm kind of just resigned to long COVID. Like, if this is the way that I begin to become more and more disabled, then I guess this is the way that I become more and more disabled. Because in a lot of ways, COVID was the first in real life example of how collective action is the only action that matters in the long term. You can't just protect yourself when it comes to a contagious viral disease like this. You have to keep in mind, like, your love and care and consideration for other people as you go about your own life. If you just go about your own life thinking, well, I don't care if I get sick, so I'm just gonna do no mask and, you know, whatever, then yeah, we're gonna have a pandemic that goes on forever, that has long-term effects, that hurts the people who are already in a weakened position, And it's the same with climate change, right? Like, we can keep doing whatever the fuck we want, and the companies that put out most of the damaging practices will keep doing what they want, and the people who have the least mobility geographically will suffer the most first. So that logic can be applied everywhere. I think just the more examples of systemic abuse and oppression and exploitation we see, the more dots we connect about how it's really all the same. Like, it all functions in the same way. Whether it's health, whether it's wealth, whether it's environment, whether it's human rights or animal rights, it's all kind of the same. Yeah, it's true. A lot of us don't care about how other people are doing. I saw it firsthand. When I was unionizing at Hearst. Well, actually, even before then, like, I think when I got really depressed, like really depressed in my adult life, was when I was working minimum wage in New York City, doing a room share with a Craigslist stranger who was completely passive aggressive about having us as roommates. And I was really miserable in my life then. I felt like I was in restaurant work, dead end. I was waking up at really early hours, coming home really late, working 2 jobs. I was seeing like homeless population just everywhere, and I felt like not only was I miserable, but there were people having it way worse than me, and just feeling the weight of knowing how this world functions and feeling like this is a long-term thing that we're all kind of cursed with. I think that was the first moment when I realized, oh, like, yeah, we could probably solve all of these problems if we wanted to, but we just don't, right? Because this is the way that the world works, the way it works. And then when we were unionizing, I saw the amount of dedication that some people had, very minority. And then most of the people feeling very detached about it and very scared about it, and then management being very anti about it. And just the amount of like propaganda and fake news that goes around when you advocate for a union in your workplace. The amount of resources that they're willing to dedicate to shutting you down. I can't imagine how much money Hearst spent on those union busting lawyers for 3.5 years, and probably will continue to for the life of the union, because they need to like renegotiate contracts and enforce shit. Just knowing that that's what our society prizes and is willing to dedicate resources to was eye-opening, devastating, infuriating, exhausting, and just like, I don't know. And that's what we have to deal with on all the different fronts, in all the different industries. What are auras? Are they a 3M mask? Oh, they are, aren't they? I just bought this pack of 20 masks. It looks like they're aura. The review said that these are for really small faces. I don't know, we'll see. My face isn't really that small. Is 3M one of the brands we're supposed to be BDSing from? Shit. Well, my mung bean paste is pretty good. Unrealistic BDS target. See, this is actually a really cool thing that I've noticed too. Is like, I think we went really hard for a long time of like, everything's evil. We have to like divest from all of these brands that are related. And I think in the past month, we started getting more realistic about how to focus our efforts. I've seen more posts come out that say, you know, like, we support BDS, but it's just unfeasible to make people not buy all of these brands. So instead, let's just concentrate our efforts on these like 6. And I think that's actually really helpful, especially for people who are not like all bought into the framework of resistance as a lifestyle, as a life goal, as a life framework. It's really good to guide people of like manageable steps, chunkable information. This is something that they instilled in us at teacher training when I went to do a teaching fellowship in China. It's just like, when you teach a concept and you plan a lesson around it, you have to chunk the information in digestible pieces. Otherwise, you know, the students are going to either choke on it or choose not to ingest it. Metaphors. And not only do you have to chunk the information, you also have to like spiralize the curriculum so that it constantly revisits the same themes, but in a slightly different angle and perspective with slightly different examples. And I feel like this is actually how I've been kind of cultivating my own learning unconsciously too, is seeing all these examples of power dynamics, of abuses, of systemic manipulation in all these different movements, and then realizing after way too long, it feels that, oh shit, like, yeah, everything works this way. Now it's starting to make sense. Like, it's still depressing as fuck to realize this, but at least it's starting to make more sense. And I feel like, yeah, I'm relatively sheltered to just realize this at the age of 34. It probably just means that I haven't been exposed to many instances of injustices where it's like apparent how bad it is. But still, I guess more people have to see this before we can move forward as a body of power. So we're all just kind of like at different points in the path. It feels so empty to say words like liberation and resistance right now. Does it feel like that to anyone else? It feels like the more we say these words, the more they become tokenized in a way. The more poster child they become. The less motivation there is to actually realize them in tangible forms. And I don't really know what to do about that. I just feel it happening, and I don't, like, it's frustrating and scary, because this is like internalized hopelessness in a lot of ways. I haven't even unraveled why it makes me feel stupid to say words like liberation and resistance. Is it part of the propaganda framework that makes us kind of giggle and snicker at these words that actually point to what we actually need? I don't know. Lando, do you want to be a mod? If I make you a mod, you can post links. And you don't have to feel extra responsibility for actually moderating the chat, but would you like the power of modding? I shall grant it to you with great honor. But thank you, Karen, for dropping the link. Okay, you are modded. I hereby mod you. In the name of the mush, the bowl, and the memories of happiness. I don't know. This is new, actually. YouTube just gave me the option of making you a standard moderator or like an even higher power. So Lando, let me know if you see anything different. If you want the higher power, I can also grant that to you. I have no idea what the higher power entails. In the name of the mush, the brine, and the great ferment. I love that. The great ferment. The great ferment is a great title. Thank you for accepting the modest, the modship. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna put my greens away so that I can eat them for the rest of the week. I did buy a lot of mushrooms from Flushing yesterday, so we'll be cooking mushrooms this week. Soon, I hope. Keep your salad boxes. They're so great for storing washed greens. Guys, we're gonna eat a little bit of brie because I was in Manhattan on Friday and I went to Whole Foods again to treat myself to a block of cheese. I don't really know why I picked up brie because I don't even like brie. I guess I was still looking for a sale, but this wasn't really that cheap either. But you remember last time I bought a block of blue and then I didn't eat it on time and then it molded? Yeah, we're not gonna let that happen again. So we're gonna eat a piece tonight. I do feel like brie is better served on something starchy. So maybe we will heat up a piece of cornbread. I tried to give Grandma cornbread. She did not bite. She did not like it. She told me she liked it. Same thing with the mung bean paste. She told me she liked it and then proceeded to not eat it. Typical grandma me. And it's not even that sweet, so I don't know what her problem is, but I've actually, my personal development this month has been not caring as much about how grandma receives my food anymore because I just can't be bothered. Okay, Raphael says something really interesting just now. Disregarding the positive effects of it, there may be a selfish part of us that doesn't like when grassroots movements go mainstream because we lose a sense of fighting a unique cause one that differentiates us from the mass. A little, yes, but also I don't know what it means for a movement to go mainstream, because I feel like when we have mainstream movements, all we get is like hinge profiles that say BLM, ACAB, and communism. I don't see material change. I don't see people really changing the way they live their lives or earn their money for the most part. And maybe it's just because I'm impatient, but I don't actually know if we've defunded policing after all of the ACABing that we've been doing, you know? So I feel like when movements go mainstream is when they get incorporated into capitalistic frameworks of profit. Everybody wants to buy the keffiyeh now and wear it. I just don't, I'm not sure. I just feel like people add it to their identity, which I guess is good, but is it? I'm lost. Anyway, brie. Does spiking your coffee lessen the effects of caffeine? What about like the Me Too movement? Okay, do you think it affected real change? I think it increased awareness. I think it increased the way that we are openly talking about how systems incorporate harassment and sexual abuse and power dynamics into the fold of exploitation. But I don't know to what extent we've actually woken up. I think these movements tend to like change the way we think and less the way we operate, if that makes sense. Warm cornbread, cold brie. But I think I feel like the Me Too movement woke us up to a conversation that was very much needed. It was like maybe a lot of women felt like they deserved to be put into positions where they had to accept the terms of something that they didn't actually want to consent to. And it made us realize that like, yo, we not only have a systemic abuse problem, we also have a communication problem, we have a kind of female empowerment problem, and underlying all of that is power dynamics, right? Again, a lot of these situations is not only like physical power dynamics, but class power dynamics, economic, financial, social dynamics. All of these abuses of power stem from an exchange of quid pro quo, right? So it seemed to me like most of the cases that were out were Hollywood executives who were utilizing their power to leverage that over people who wanted to become known in the industry. So in a way, it was like a very insidious exchange of goods. Like, not to discount, clearly non-consensual cases where there were actually just like a complete disregard. of what the other person said they wanted or didn't want. But I also think that it exposed this gray area of like unspoken contracts in a way, that I think exists in very many different dynamics in life, not just sexual ones. And I think what the Me Too movement ultimately made me realize is like, I have to kind of get myself out of the narrative that just because I'm a woman, it means that I will be a victim. I think it made me start thinking about how do I make sure that I don't allow myself to be in that situation, and what would I do to try to get myself out of that situation if I were ever subjected to that situation. I think a lot of conversations need to be had within the self first, and you need to be clear about what it is that you want and what you're willing to do to get what you want before you can actually sort out the external dynamics between interactions with someone else. Reading back on your comments. Community building is at the core of what I believe many are seeking in their lives. Yeah, I think it would enrich us in a way that we have totally been neglecting and don't even realize maybe or recognize. All the reporters and people on the ground in Palestine have asked people to show their support because it is their protest flag, basically. Yeah. I'm not saying don't wear your keffiyehs. I'm just saying that I feel like there's a lot of capitalization happening from it, just organically, the way that things get eaten up by the capital machine. Like, I'm getting Instagram ads for Palestinian olive oil and keffiyehs and Palestinian flags. I'm getting like reels of showing you how to wear it that's connected to these places that are vending the keffiyehs. So it's just like, it makes me feel like this gray area hesitation of sorts, you know? It's not bad, but it's also weird. It's just weird. I'm still trying to understand what's happening, what the dynamics are. Why did I choose peanut oil? It's just a common cooking oil in Chinese cuisine, and it has a slight sweet nuttiness to it. As we develop more awareness and solidarity with others, we will change the way we see liberation and support. I see. Overton window. I'm gonna Google that. Overton window is an approach to identifying the ideas that define the spectrum of acceptability of governmental policies. It says politicians can act only within the acceptable range. Shifting the Overton window involves proponents of policies outside the window persuading the public to expand the window. Interesting. Yeah, I think I've heard of this term like maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I just still not integrating into my brain. And it's interesting, Fresh from the Coven says, we are taught we have to do the work, we as in women. The menfolk need to have a conversation with their damn selves. I'm not doing their emotional labor anymore. I get it, but also, I don't think it's as easy as just telling them they need to do their emotional labor. I think these are like deeply entrenched gender roles that all I can do is sigh. My stomach ache is coming back. Hey Gary. way that Free Palestine has changed an American's perspective is a massive shift. Yes, I agree. And you know what? I'll take it. But I've also seen this happen to ACAB and BLM, and I feel like maybe this is just like the impatient urgency in me that wants to see quote unquote results, but results don't happen that quickly. So I'm also trying to manage my own expectations, I think. Anyway, a cornbread brie sandwich. Here we go. Needs black pepper. Needs purple peppercorns. When I whip out a burlap and barrel spice in these lives, I feel like when the wife in the Truman Show does a random ad spot. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's not the worst thing that I could be mentioning in a live, but it still gives me that moment of like, whoa, are you an ad? Modern living is weird, y'all. We're like fully conscious now of all the traps we might and continue to fall into. And still we fall into them. Like, it's both terrifying and hilarious and hopeless and like weird. It's like all of it is weird. Every single moment's uber awareness and dissection and understanding has led to this like very strange existence where you're living your life lucidly, observing yourself, walking these steps, and feeling like you're in a dream state where you have no control over your movements and still you observe yourself making them. Like, woo. I'm not sure. I'm not sure anymore. I've never been so unsure as I am now. I am glad to report that this brie is actually quite delicious. So we're gonna keep eating it because it hasn't molded yet, and every day that passes is another day for it to increase its molding, but it's this brand. I don't think it's a super fancy brand, but I love it actually. It's a double cream specialty fromage dauphinois. Cheers to brie and beyond. I don't know how I've managed to have a live that's almost 2 hours long just from eating and ranting, but here it is. Ram actually messaged me yesterday and he was like, yo, you okay? I was like, yeah. But some of you worry when I don't go live for a few days. Guys, don't worry. Just look at my insane story posts on Instagram and know that I am unwell but alive, you know? That's all we can do these days is unwell and alive. Thank you for stopping by and saying hi. let's drink some kombucha to finish off my meal of beans, sweet beans, random noodles on raw green leaves, a grapefruit, cheese. Oh my god, my stomach is gonna explode. This flavor tastes better after opening for 18 hours. At first, at its strongest, most carbonated self, it tastes a little bit like cleaner vinegar. Was not a fan. I actually really loved GT kombucha, but it turns out that they have horrendous worker rights violations. So I was hoping for it to be a virgin mojito, but I mean, it kind of is now, but it still has a slight cleaner taste. Bye, have a good night. I'll probably sign off soon too. But yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna help my gut. I'm probably gonna try to do some more stretching, and then I'll go shower, and then I'll go smoke, and then we'll do the whole day over again after some sleep, hopefully. Yeah, look up GT Kombucha. They've just got like, I think like a class action lawsuit, or just someone basically filed a lawsuit against them for all their worker rights violations. It sounded pretty bad, and the way the company was defending itself sounded very much in line with all the kind of rhetoric that I've heard from people who tried to union bust and all that shit, so I'm not buying that shit again. Yeah, this was a $1 purchase from Salvation Army. I don't remember. Oh, here's my cow. Ta-da! Alright peeps, I'm gonna bid you a good night. Thank you for joining me, and next time we'll drink out of this Uncle Jack's straight whiskey shot glass that I also thrifted from the Salvation Army. Be well, friends. Take care of yourself. Treat yourself. Acknowledge the guilt. But also be kind to yourself. Because this world doesn't make any sense. And I guess we're still going to learn as we go on. Happy week ahead. Take your vitamins. Drink your water. Sleep more than I do, please.